far away, but it comes and goes. So I think it just has to do with proximity. But we are going live. Here we go.
For you, you've come to the right place. Welcome to Hypnosis Everywhere with your host, Inez Simpson. This is the show that talks to everyone, from the experienced practitioner to the cautiously curious, and yes, even the skeptics. Now, here's Inez Simpson.
Hello and welcome to Hypnosis Everywhere, and we are on part 2 of our sexual issue with hypnosis talk. So we're going to go very quickly, but before that, I just need to mention, because my Martin will be smacking me if I don't, because I have said I was going to put up some stuff about my mentoring, and there's going to be a webinar, a free webinar, as far as I know. Yep, it's free, and it's on the 27th of August. So you can get all the information on that on InezSimpson.com. So that's it for me. And we're going to head right into the discussion. And if you want to know the backgrounds of these people and everything, you can go to part 1, which was a couple weeks ago. So Kaz Riley's with me and Greg Beckett, and we are now talking about it. And I'm going to pass it right to Kaz to start, because we're talking about fertility, but hypnosis helps fertility great. And I always say to people, it costs so much money to do that. At least go and do hypnosis first, because it'll help you both ways. Even if you do the I always get
the IVF, the cost of the IVF,
yeah,
and the time and the injections.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to leave it to you, Cass, to start, and let's chat about it.
Well, I think, hypnosis with fertility treatment and also pre-fertility treatment, when a couple are trying to get pregnant, they often fall into that trap of where they've been trying really hard not to get pregnant for a period of time, and then make that change. And we live in a world where we expect things to happen very quickly, don't we? And we're used to making things happen. We're taught if we work hard, then these things will happen. And actually, our fertility is a little bit different with that in terms that we need to kind of really relax and let nature do her thing. And I often get clients that have got really caught up. They've been driven very much by their cycles. They've been using ovulation sticks. Maybe there's been a reversal of a vasectomy somewhere. And, all kinds of things that play into people's minds that make them really lose faith in their bodies. So hypnosis is a great way to get that mind-body connection back again, so that everything can flow as it should do. Couples can connect in. I know with sexual dysfunction, most of sexual freedom hypnosis came from working with fertility clients that actually had sexual dysfunction, and by rectifying their sexual dysfunction, connecting them back in with their own bodies and then with their partner, they were then able to get pregnant. So, that's one area of fertility. And then, of course, there's the whole IVF journey, which the average cost here in the UK is, I think it's £6,500 per cycle, which I think is about $7,000, something like that. And just the whole emotional stress and strain of that, especially now with all the things that are available to couples, like genetic testing and embryo transfer and all kinds of natural killer cells. I mean, women that are told that they've got natural killer cells which are killing off their own embryos, which is, just as a suggestion from a doctor, is a very, very powerful thing, isn't it? So what's your experience with this, Greg? Have you had many couples with fertility?
I've had a few. It hasn't necessarily been my specialty, but I've had a few, and they've already done their IVF, and they're kind of out of it and saying, I don't want to do this anymore, but they wanted to try one more thing. And typically, from what I hear from other hypnotists, is that we're the last resort.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And as Inez was saying, it'd be interesting if they came to us first before spending all that money to just at least get us out of the way, if that's how they feel about it, because that's how a lot of people, I'll go see them and get it out of the way. And but it may just be that it works. But I took it from a different point of view, because they already had all the tests and everything was fine, but they just couldn't get pregnant. And one in particular was that the woman was always busy. If not making something, doing something, going to work, being in a play, and I happened to know this woman pretty well at the time, and I said to her, look, I'm going to go from the different viewpoint. Let's go from the spirit choosing the parents. And if there's a child, if there's a spirit wanting you as parents, how are you going to show her that, or him, turned out to be a her, I'm giving you the end already, but that you're available to them? Why should they pick you? And so she goes, well, I'll make time. I said, no. You have to make time first before the baby comes so that they can choose. So, and also too, the room they were going to use for the baby's room was still storage. I said, how are you showing that you're ready even to yourself and your body if it's still in storage? How do you believe that you're going to get pregnant if everything's all stored up and hoarded in a room that's going to be the baby's room? So we did some of the checking of the body with a red light, yellow light, green light system of fertility and just body systems and things like that. And we did some progression so she could center in her soul area or core area, whatever people want to call it, and reach out and look for that energy of the child that wants to come. And she gave me dates and gender and all of that and a time frame-ish. And then I gave her an audio that she would listen to, and she started making time for herself, which was the time for the baby. Like no busy finger stuff, just, chill out, read a book, whatever, as if she was with the baby. And they made the baby room and had the baby. She got pregnant a few months later.
It's amazing, isn't it? Those mental blocks have such a profound effect, I think, on becoming pregnant. Even the most common one I see is actually the fear of getting pregnant, because as young women, we're often told that, we'll bring shame upon our families if we have, a baby out of wedlock, or we're still kind of conditioned that way. I always tell the story, for myself really was when I found out that I was pregnant with my eldest son, one of the first thoughts I had was, oh my goodness, what am I going to tell my dad? And I was married and 30 at the time, I completely planned and wanted, but, we're taught to fear childbirth. There's a phobia called tocophobia, which is the fear of childbirth, which is often something else that I've had to do with a lot of women, is actually get rid of the fear of childbirth, because we're conditioned, aren't we, that it's this horrible experience. And yet it can be the most wonderful, amazing, affirming, feminine, experiences that you could possibly experience. But we're taught to fear it. And I think there's a lot of fear sometimes around pregnancy, and also what that means to, life in terms of how your life will change. I think people don't talk about that. There's a great joy when a child comes into the world, but there's also a lot of changes, and people sometimes kind of go through a grieving process for their old life as well as embracing the new one. But people don't, it's one of those taboo subjects, a bit like sex really, isn't it? We're just supposed to feel the joy of being a new parent, when actually it can be quite a mixed bag of emotions, can't it?
Yeah, and that's a whole other subject. I mean, it's a big subject. So there's this.
Kaz, real quick, something.
Yeah.
You were talking about the fear of pregnancy and those sorts of things, and not getting pregnant. Do you think it's limited to the women?
Oh no, definitely
also
not.
In men, because we were taught. Don't.
Don't.
Yeah.
That's not where you finish.
I was told it will ruin your life. When we're younger, this will ruin your life. And, actually, it's just to make this change that, oh, well, now we're in a place where we might want to have a baby, or, it's that switch again that we have to make, isn't it?
Do you think that even the childbirth issue of the fear of the pain of childbirth and that kind of stuff is limited to women?
No, very much. And certainly looking at the aftermath, I often see men that are very traumatized by birth, or watching their partner give birth, obviously, but and feeling helpless, feeling unmasculine. I mean, there's all kinds of, and, men traditionally weren't allowed in the birthing room. So you've still got a generation of what you're going in there for, men shouldn't be in there. It's all social conditioning, isn't it, that's changing over time. So,
But by them being in the birthing room, doesn't it also bring up other challenges? I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong or right. There might have been a reason why they were out at that time. And now that it's a different area of life and we've evolved to this, that the men are there and everything, but then they go, they get to see the reality of everything and sometimes have other issues to deal with.
Yeah. All kinds of stuff, isn't there? And, I think anybody doesn't like to be, at the very the very kind of basic level of seeing your partner, if they are having a difficult birth and being really unable to do anything to help, feeling helpless to aid somebody that you love is one of the worst things positions to be in. And we often talk about witnessing a trauma is actually harder than being the person that's traumatized. In some ways it's more traumatic because you see more, don't you? So there's all that as well. And also just the big shift in a relationship afterwards as well. People's focus is changed to their children, as it should do, but then you can get a disconnection between partners as well. But that all comes after the fertility stuff, doesn't it?
I just had to jump on it because I was thinking that I've heard guys, friends of mine and things talk about, oh my gosh, how's my wife going to deal with that? What about, all these things that you were talking about for the women? And I realized, well, that's a male issue too. Everybody thinks automatically it's the female issue. And I'm wondering about doing a perspective session with the husband about how she's going through this, but him just being there is helping. It's, so that it's not like, oh, I can't help, I can't do, just being there is shifting that perspective for them beforehand.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things with, because I'll go through with clients from sexual dysfunction through their fertility, through their pregnancy. And sometimes I actually attend the births and work as a hypno doula. And, what I'll often say to birthing partners and dads to be is, don't underestimate the power of simply your presence, because you're the person that this woman loves, that you can make her feel safe just by physically being in the room. And actually that's all it needs, is just sometimes is to have somebody there that makes you feel safe, which quite often, in a hospital scenario, it's so alien, it's very clinical. I know we're doing lots to change all of that, but actually it's just about being there. It's the person that makes you feel safe, isn't it?
Yeah. So the other thing is that, with hypnosis, now we're going to get off topic, so I got to be very careful, is that to have the baby, we do a lot of hypnosis things, and Simpson protocol birthings thing, the man is included. So, I mean, we've sort of addressed that from all those areas, but that's a whole separate issue, and people are interested in that issue. We had Natalie Fissé on and she had a doctor in Montreal and birthed like 4,000 children with hypnosis. So, we've had a lot of stuff about that. They can go back and listen to that. I think we should go back. Not all great stuff, but let's stick to the because people are here listening about that. Okay. So we have 30 seconds, so maybe we should just wait. I just used up your last 30 seconds nearly. So we'll just go to break, and we'll see you on the other side. Thanks.
All right, you're clear.
Good. Okay. All right. That's great. Great start. It sure goes fast, eh? That was...
Doesn't it, Joss? Should we move towards libido, and then we don't get tied up down a path that we're kind of...
Yeah.
Well, that's really what we're in the business of, is hope.
Yes, we are. Even though,
outcomes, not just hope. Outcomes.
Outcomes and giving them hope to get to the outcome. I always do say to my clients, though, that, hope and try is it's great to have hope. Just don't hope what you're doing is going to work. You need to have some, so there's a different connotation on hope that can actually.
All right, coming back in about 10 seconds.
Good.
Our shows and network on our timeline. Visit facebook.com/Voice America.
You're listening to Hypnosis Everywhere, the Simpson Protocol. To reach the show today, please call into 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to Inez, that's INES, at InezSimpson.com. Now, back to this week's program.
So welcome back to Hypnosis Everywhere, and we're going to go right back to Kaz Riley, and we're going to a next topic of libido.
Yay.
Absolutely. Well, libido probably is one of, or the loss of libido. If you tap libido into Google, I think it comes up with 86,000 hits in 3.5 seconds or something. So it's obviously a hot topic, and it's something that affects both men and women. And obviously people that have issues with libido, the first thing they need to go is just go and get checked out by their doctor, just to make sure that their hormone levels and everything are running as they should do. But it's also one of the most easily treatable problems with sexuality, if you like. And it comes from many different reasons. We've got all the things like stress and, things like hormones, aging. But we're now thinking that's probably a lot to do with conditioning, that we just believe that we lose our sex drive as we get older. And actually, we don't need to, even post-menopausally. We know that that's not necessarily true. A lot of it, it's things like body issue after birth. It can be something that's happened. Infidelity is another one, if there's been an affair within a relationship. And all of those things are so, work so beautifully with hypnosis in terms of the things that we can do and that mind-body connection. It's not something that we should just accept as part of getting older, or as just something that that's just gone away. And I know people talk about it's not really an issue unless it's an issue for you, but often if it's causing an issue within a relationship and the libido used to be there, that can cause problems within a marriage or within a relationship. And there's that belief as well that libido wanes over time as a relationship goes on, which is true. But now if we look at a lot of the research, we now know that's a lot to do with novelty, and also about that feedback loop in terms of connectivity and sensuality and all the things that are needed to keep a relationship strong generally, never mind just libido and sex drive. And it's probably kind of worth noting that, we talk about libido as in often about, that need to have sex, and actually it's the need to connect. Where I always talk about a sex drive and an orgasm drive, and the two things aren't necessarily the same thing. The ability to orgasm doesn't necessarily feed your libido. And we also know that orgasmless sex is actually quite important in terms of the amount of time and connection, because it's not orgasms that drive our libido, it's that connection that does. It's the oxytocin and the dopamine and all those wonderful hormones that we have.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When we talk about libido, and we talk about couples that are okay, here several questions. Do you typically see individual people that are in relationships, or do you sometimes see it's a multiple question, do you see couples together that are in a relationship so you can understand the dynamic? Because you might have someone show up with a libido issue and the partner's not even interested. They're saying, well, what's wrong with me? Or it
really varies. The answer to that is both. So I do work with couples. I send them, if they need kind of marriage counselling, I send them somewhere else first, and they go to the expert for that, and then they come to me for their sexual issues, if you like, afterwards, if they need to do that. But more often than not, I see individuals that have libido issues, and it's women that are still having sex, but they don't really want to. We're able to have sex without much of a libido. This is one of the things that, it's that interest, isn't it? And the idea, of course, that, they're kind of just doing this to appease their partners, feeds back into this negative feedback loop, which then has a detrimental effect upon their libido. So, it really varies. And also, just in terms of, often it's if something's changed within their lives. So, maybe a body shape's changed, maybe they've put on weight or they've lost weight, or I had a lady that had a breast removed and, became very body conscious and didn't feel attractive. So there's many different reasons as to why people come and see me, but, sometimes I'll see them as a couple, more often than not individually. And sometimes a mixture of the two, actually. So I might see a couple together, and then I might see them separately, and then back together again.
Are they typically in a relationship when you see people with libido?
Not necessarily. I'm
just kind of curious about the demographic.
Quite often often, more often than not, they are, but quite often the lack of libido has been one of the issues that's caused a relationship breakdown, and it's often then when they're moving forwards that they're then
in between.
they're kind of thinking, well,
what's wrong or what I need to do, because I don't even feel like getting in there and dating, but I want to date or whatever it is. And
just get back out there and feel. And it's that, I guess it's quite a light, Freud talked about the libido as like a life force energy, wasn't it? So I think, it's about differentiating that feeling of libido, which is a very positive feeling, and a feeling of just sexual frustration, which is a very different thing, isn't it? And yet again, people will into sort of change the two around, thinking that they're the same thing. So it's a slightly different thing.
So we're saying typically, because we talked about this in the last couple of weeks ago, is the sex that we see on porn, which is an issue, is not training our libido.
Absolutely. In fact,
it's training the orgasmic, quick, let's go.
It's the orgasmic drive. Absolutely. And in fact, it's creating a loss in libido, because, it's looking at that kind of quick hit, where actually, libido is much more complex. And in fact, even sex in the movies has a lot to answer for. You get a couple that are, they're generally both gorgeous. They seem to have this connection. They seem to get aroused very, very quickly. They orgasm perfectly at the same time, and then all is wonderful. And of course, sex generally is quite a messy process, really, isn't it? And I think, it's either that is really romantic, where the way it's portrayed, or we've got the total opposite, where it's very mechanical. There's no touching. It's what they call hands-free sex, isn't it, in the pornography world, which is much more about, again,
the aggression, which is which, if that's your kink, which is kind of leading to something else, is fine. But if you have someone that's looking to be touched and looking to be caressed and looking to have that libido raised within them over a period in a session, right? Yeah. Maybe block off time that you're going to meet with your partner, and you have 3 hours or and make time for that.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm here, you're here, let's go. I got to go to work, or which isn't wrong. Nothing wrong with that either. Let's get but not if you're looking for a fulfillment in the other way that the person's looking for.
And often, libido is driven by other things as well. It's not just about sexual contact. It's about a lot of non-sexual contact. It's about feeling safe and connecting in, with your partner. So, or a partner. We're not saying that everybody has to be married or long-term relationship. That's kind of one of the older things, isn't it? This is about people being able to choose. And sometimes, libido's also affected by things like guilt and shame and insecurity, and generally, over familiarity is one of the biggest causes, where couples get into, I'll touch you here, then you do that. It's like a series of buttons that are being pressed, and that's great sometimes. But when people talk about, I often get people in here, especially women, that'll say, "Oh no, my partner's is very attentive. He makes me orgasm. I feel great. But then actually their libido's not there, and we know." One of the biggest drivers of libido is positive experience. So it's maybe about what somebody expects good sex looks like, rather than what it actually is for them. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is to make sure that, good sex, that they know what that looks like for them.
And I was just going to interject a little bit, because this is a hypnosis show. So I just want to remind the audience that what we're talking is about what we can help people with hypnosis. And just the part about communication between the communication is lacking. In past, I know in my life, there has been times that there was lack of communication. Absolutely. And if people can't talk about it in their relationship, then there is always the difficulty. So we do a lot of work on all kinds of facets of this.
Absolutely.
Great.
And also getting people, hypnotically to feel what's going on in their bodies, and to get that mind-body connection back again, so that they can really experience something on many levels. And I think, people can get a bit kind of split off from their minds and bodies. And actually it's about being very present, and hypnosis is such an amazing way to do that, isn't it? We can even enhance sensations and all kinds of lovely things.
And when you're present, it's very enjoyable. So, but not being present, that's when the libido's not.
Absolutely. Well, it's kind of a mindful way. I think I heard somebody say recently, that kind of mindfulness is really hypnosis in a tuxedo. And, it really is, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It is.
You're being very mindful in that sexual time, really.
Very good. So, Greg, you're just itching to say something there.
Well, I find it interesting that it's all such self-perspective, meaning you have clients come in, lovely, beautiful, maybe they've gained 5 pounds. I mean, but what the thing is, that self-perspective of how they feel about themselves, and men too, and of, are they attractive? Are they this? Are they that? And they think that they're not. And there's somebody that's like, so their partner might be excited that they gained 10 pounds or 5 pounds. And finally, she's gained, I liked Meaty, but I enjoyed her, and I married her, or I'm with her because I love her and she's great. And then she's like, oh, I get, and they didn't even talk about it. Right.
Yeah. Well, more often than not, the partner doesn't care. But the partner just wants to enjoy their partner, which is how it should be, really.
So it's interesting, the own self-perspective when people come in, and then use that hypnosis for them to sense and feel how they actually are, and others, they don't see how others view, because we're also carrying a lot of things from our past. When we were talking before about not getting pregnant, same thing with body issue and body change and body shape and, all of that kind of stuff.
So guess what? This segment's over already, and we're going to a break. Wow. All right. See you on the other side.
All right, you're clear.
Thank you. Wow, this is going so fast.
You're
doing great.
Baby.
Thanks. We're maybe going to have another one down the road. We'll do it again down the road.
Christmas package.
Just keep reminding you're in that hypnosis.
Yeah, you just, yeah.
I will try and remember to keep hooking it back into hypnosis.
Because we do want them to understand that this is what about using hypnosis. Plus, I think education is great. The other thing is, it's really interesting is when someone this is from personal perspective, I was married for 30 years before I got separated and moved on. And the whole question in your mind at that point is, oh my God, what do I do now? Because you're 30 years older, and it's the whole head game of that. And, luckily I sort of can deal, but I'm sure, I use hypnosis for everything. So, but it's, it's interesting is looking back on that. I never really thought much about it but connection of this is very astounding, and especially in the divorce rate today, and women, especially, usually sometimes very long marriages like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's looking at, there's so many, especially people sort of in their 40s and 50s.
30 seconds.
Okay.
Are we going to just finish that off and go to kink? Got anything else to say about that?
I don't know. What about what you and y'all were just talking about?
Okay.
All right, here we go.
.com. Talk soon.
You're listening to Hypnosis Everywhere, the Simpson Protocol. To reach the show today, please call into 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to Inez, that's INES, at InezSimpson.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Wow, welcome back to this exciting show. And you know what? We're just going to keep going again. And we're just talking about libido. And I had just said in the break that, when I was married for 30 years. And then when I had to get I was suddenly single, and there's a big shock. 30 years difference in your body image and all those other things. So it can be a real big issue for anyone, man or woman.
It's certainly something that I see a lot here. People in their 40s, 50s, 60s that have come out of a very long term, 25-year plus relationships. And, there's a lot there in terms of what hypnosis can do, just in terms of sexual confidence and feeling desirable, because they're not in their 20s anymore. But also, do you know what? We know as well that for many of these people, it's actually a real sexual awakening, because they get stuck in a rut often within a long-term relationship. And actually, it's a time when they really start to explore their sexuality and all the wonderful things that can bring. And that can be supported so beautifully with hypnosis, just in terms of feeling things and also just having the confidence. And I think as we get older, often we can get to that point of self-acceptance, can't we? We are who we are, and there's nothing sexier than confidence, is there? So that's actually, it's difficult, but also it can be really liberating for people as they come out the other side of that.
You can turn the light on, as we say, hey?
Yeah.
And I would hope that, the verbal communication with all of that acceptance and stuff becomes a lot better, and having that confidence with it, whether it's through hypnosis or whatever it is that, we do, to be able to say, I like this. I want to try this. I would like to, hey, what about,
Absolutely.
New partner. What's interesting is new partners bring in new ideas, fresh ideas that one may have never thought of. Or you're like, oh, or you would have thought of it, go, thank you, someone that'll tell me about it and we'll do it. Or,
absolutely.
We sort of
and this ties back into libido as well, because if people did that with their current partner as well, that we get the novelty back, and we get rid of that familiarity, don't we? That's often the killer of libido.
Which kind of leads us into what everybody's expecting us to talk about, was because we did promise we'd go for talk about kink, and we do only have, how fast it's going. Let's go. We can go back and put it all together in the last segment. Okay. That
was my segue. All these other things you could try.
I know. That's why I picked it up. There we go.
I being in LA, I get quite a variety of people, LGBTQ plus, and one thing that's really been interesting is I've had several clients transitioning from male to female or female to male, and I just stumbled upon, I didn't think about it, and then we did it and I've done it with several of them now, is past life regression. And the reason being, I know this isn't a past life regression show, but
no, I can get that connection.
I have a really wonderful client who's transitioning from female to male and went to a past life where he was male in that life, and was able to feel all of that and have an understanding of that power and the simplicity of it, instead of always worrying, is this right or not right on how I feel. So that's using hypnosis for that sort of thing is pretty cool.
Also, things like I work quite closely with the transvestite community, and traditionally it was kind of thought that kind of cross-dressing, it was kind of all very bimboified, but actually what I find is I get a lot of men that when they kind of take on that female persona, actually what they want to feel is like a very strong, powerful, confident woman. And in terms of helping people with persona, hypnosis is very useful there as well. That's part of them. And again, it's acceptance, isn't it?
We need to clarify the difference between gender identity and sexuality here.
Yeah. Go on.
Because someone may be a cross-dresser, right? Mm-hmm. Male, and still identify as straight.
Absolutely.
Or someone may transition from male, let's say male to female, and then identify and want to be with women. So gender identity and sexuality are two different things.
Absolutely. And also we need to separate the LGBTQ plus and kink, because there are plenty of very vanilla relationships within the
LGBTQ.
Absolutely.
Traditional. You know what?
Absolutely, and certainly, we want to get away from the idea that community, all that community is kinky, and all heterosexuals are vanilla, because that isn't the case at all.
No.
And also,
they get frustrated that
absolutely, and also I think there's this idea that people that enjoy kink can't do vanilla, and it's just about the whole, the whole kind of, there's so many different things that we can enjoy at different times, and I think it's so that everything's a bit, we talk about spicing things up a bit, isn't it? And that essentially is partly what kink is.
And it's interesting that someone else's vanilla, some might think, is kink.
Absolutely.
And vice versa.
Absolutely. And really it's all on a spectrum, isn't it? Like most things, and I think we touched on this last time, that with regards to kink, actually, if you look at the Romans and if you look at the kind of ancient Egyptians, the things that are now seen as kinky were very commonplace, and a lot of it was to do with the introduction of different religions that then started to tell people what they were allowed and not to do with their sexuality. So now we're kind of having a reawakening, or kind of almost like the ultimate regression, really, isn't it? Is going back to how things used to be and dropping a lot of the shame and the guilt, which of course hypnosis is wonderful for, isn't it? It's to just allow people to be themselves and to enjoy the things that they enjoy.
When we talk about actual sexual, I don't know how I'm going to describe this, but I'm just saying, I had mentioned, I think last time, and it was already, we were off air, I had a client who was here for something else, and she was going to meet her long-term boyfriend, and she says, hey, she's getting out of the chair, and she says, can you maybe help me with something? And I said, well, what is that? She says, well, I cannot orgasm when he is pleasuring me orally. And I said, get back in the chair. Let's go 1, 2, 3, and worked with her on feelings, and because she can get just to the point of orgasming, and then the guilt would kick in, is what we found out, So we worked with that and stuff, and allowed her to feel what it would feel like, because that was actually an issue in the relationship. She couldn't think that he would really, it's that whole judgment of when you're kids, and what's right and what's wrong, and what's dirty, what's not, so we worked through that. And so that she could actually feel, not necessarily, and this is not about erotic, this is just about therapeutic, to where she can get past that barrier.
Absolutely.
And so she was ready, when we brought her up, and, she was ready to go home.
And it's also, with every kind of sex, whether it's seen as vanilla or something that everybody would do, there is always somebody that just doesn't like that particular thing.
Right.
And, there's nothing wrong with them. They're not traumatized. They just don't like it. And it's actually having the confidence to say, actually, I prefer not to do that, but I would do this instead. And a lot of it, this is where a lot of sexual unconfidence comes from, isn't it? In that people are led to believe they should do particular things because that's what everybody does, or that they shouldn't do these things because it's all a bit risque and kinky, and actually maybe that's the things that they like. So it's what's normal for a particular person. And it's, again, hypnosis with the self-acceptance, being able to explore. And also they can explore things in their mind as well, can't they? And kind of try things on for size a little bit without actually having to do anything at all. They can just, experience something.
Right.
And I think that's important.
In their perspective of it.
Yeah.
Right. It's interesting that in that confidence of having experience or not having experience, and being able to say yes or no is very sexy, and just building that confidence with the hypnotic, whatever it is they want or need, or even if it's so that they, because like in for instance, this woman is that she wanted to.
That's it.
Right. She wanted to. We've covered that before and so other people, like you're saying, is they feel like they should, and they have to have that confidence to say, we also talked about, and it's important, I think, to bring up, is two things. The kink community is very communicative if they're truly in the kink community.
Absolutely.
They have a lot of rules and things like that. Everything's negotiated beforehand. It's not just about, hey, hi, handshake, boom, and no one knows what anybody likes or doesn't like. There's a lot of parameters that are put up, which is really cool. and because I don't want this to go away either, is look up a yes, no, maybe list online to find out what you do and don't like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I guess it's that not being afraid to try new things, if that's what you want to do, and to have the confidence to talk to a partner about that, because I think that's often one of the things that people hold back, worrying about what their partner might think. And actually that's the thing that can often kill their libido, because there's something going on in their head that, really turns them on, and yet they feel like they're having to keep that away from their partner. And more often than not, once those conversations happen, is the partner's normally quite intrigued by that idea as well. So, and again, sometimes I'll get clients to rehearse having that conversation in hypnosis with their partner, so that they, just as in the same way you might do something for public speaking for hypnosis, for example, but it's about having intimate conversations that involve talking about sex, which people often are still, even within the realms of a really committed relationship, still very uncomfortable talking about what they need and want.
Well, that fear of rejection is very big. That fear
and being judged as well, isn't it? Being negatively judged.
Right. When the whole time the partner might have been, I wish we could.
Absolutely. It's that.
Or the negotiating, I'll do this if you do that, and we'll be good to go. It's true.
I know it's true. And communication is the big thing, isn't it?
Yeah. L, lesbian. G, gay. B, bisexual. LGBT, transsexual. Q, queer, plus, polyamorous, androgynous, asexual, pansexual,
demisexual. You name it.
Yeah. So just if anybody's curious about what those were.
Okay, we're going to have to come back to that already on the other side. So we'll see you there.
All right, you're clear.
Okay, good. Now you're going to have to explain all those things as soon as we get in. This is our 9 minute. Pardon, go ahead.
Let me look up pansexual and I forget the definition.
We could, can we add that onto something? Because those definitions would take a whole show.
Yeah.
They really would.
They would.
Could you send us a printout and we'll put it up?
Yeah, that's okay. Well, yeah, that's it. Let's do that. And we'll just say, it'll be on the show and page. Yeah.
Are you talking to me, right?
Either one of you.
Whoever does it first.
Or whoever does it both.
I'll take the responsibility, Kaz. You're coming across the pond.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great.
You gotta move.
Yeah, so in the it'll be maybe a little bit under 9 minutes, or about at 9 minutes. So if you can do it at about 7 minutes, so I have a couple minutes at the end.
Don't forget, you haven't mentioned on this show that you are at that convention. We've done it.
Yeah, that was pre. We got to do that.
People are interested.
Yeah.
You will be.
So shall we talk about what we're both going to be teaching over at the next few?
Do that first, and then we'll go from there and see how much time's left and fill it in.
Maybe can we jump in with the first thing? Is all those things we're talking about can be worked with hypnosis?
Yes.
Yes, please.
We're in
Okay.
the solution process.
Yeah.
Yeah, and discovery and all of that.
Discovery and solution. That's what we do.
In the easiest possible way.
Yeah.
Hypnosis. And then just remember, most of these people are probably not going to that convention, but it gives you some authority if you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Choose that reference card.
Can I list off, because I'm in a few places, can I just list off?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well.
And Inez, where are you? Nowhere.
Not nowhere. I'm at home right now, thanks. I kind of wish I was at HypnoThoughts with you, just so
All right, coming back.
Hypnosis everywhere. The Simpson Protocol. To reach the show today, please call into 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to Inez, that's INES, at InezSimpson.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Well, welcome back to Hypnosis Everywhere, and this is our sort of wrap-up section of the show. So I'm just going to give it to Greg to start, and just go for it.
I just want to say all of this stuff that we're talking about from the very beginning of libido all the way to LGBTQ plus and stuff. Look, we're all the same. We're all people. And when we're talking about this, we're talking about in the context of hypnosis and things that we've worked with or can work with. And it's all about solutions and feeling and communication. So in that context, you know, everything is I think doable in my viewpoint in experience and clarity and moving forward using hypnosis and all of those issues or just understandings even with hypnosis.
Absolutely. I know Greg and I we're both teaching at Hypnothoughts Live in Las Vegas next week, in fact, which is going to be great. I'm be teaching sexual freedom hypnosis, and sexual freedom hypnosis actually this past couple of years has really grown globally, and I'll be doing quite a lot of teaching. I keep coming over to America, so I'll be teaching in Vegas in August. I'm in Canada in October. I'm in New York in May. I'm in London in this coming November. So, and we're just sorting out some European dates as well for 2019. So, you know, it's the whole therapy world is really getting to grips with kind of modern day sexual dysfunction and sexual freedom. And you know that's all getting out there as well. So it's really exciting times, I think, in terms of sexual freedom and for the use of hypnosis, especially. It's one of you know the most useful and profound tools, I think, with sexuality and sexual dysfunction. So it's a great way to get that mind body connection back and not just talking about stuff, actually doing something with the feelings and the sensations and the problems that people are having. Excuse me.
Well, I am going to be at Hypnothoughts along. I get to see Kaz. She's flying in. I'll be doing a pre-course with the Simpson protocol, pre-conference course, Simpson protocol for 2 days. And then doing another hour, so talking about LGBTQ and hypnosis. And then with that, in October, I'm going to be doing a Simpson protocol course in Los Angeles for people that didn't make it to the conference. And then I also train people as hypnotists. So that's something that's ongoing throughout the year. I do different courses to certify people as hypnotists in Los Angeles.
Also, you know, we do have the sexualfreedomhypnosis.org. We do have a list of practitioners that are particularly trained in all these kinds of issues. So, you know, if people want to have a look at the website there or drop me a line, we can certainly put you in touch with somebody that's local to you. But now, obviously, you know, we have Zoom and Skype and all those kinds of things where people can indeed, you know, find somebody, you know, find the person that they want and do sessions online and all kinds of stuff now, especially if Greg and I are busy, eh?
Yeah, where do they find you exactly, Cass?
At sexualfreedomhypnosis.org.
Okay.
And we'll put all that stuff on the page too. So if people miss that, that's not. I think what the most important part of this is you guys are both training. I'm training, and the most important part is that hypnotists are getting trained in all these new. It's not new, but it's now more accepted to work with, and more people show up for it. So it's always good to have training. So.
Absolutely, and it's applying often the knowledge that we already have into a different therapy area as well, isn't it? Sometimes it's learning about the different therapy area and how to apply what we already know. And I think we don't realize how much we know sometimes, do we? You know, we're all well trained.
Yeah. But I think as the hypnotist learns about sexuality and all the other things, at least when their client walks in the door, the judgment's not there. They have knowledge of what they're dealing with, and it makes the client much more comfortable if you know something about it.
And that's the thing, you know, we know with sexual related things, you know, people have often searched for or have seen several different therapists, and there's nothing that there's the client saying that's wrong. It's just the discomfort of the therapist, isn't it? And I think, you know, sometimes it's just that bit of extra knowledge or understanding that can really help a therapist to understand, and often, you know, understand their own sexuality and all that kind of stuff as well, I think is important, isn't it?
And just to give Steen Niels Musche a little plug here too, he's in Germany, and what he always said, I put it on my website, so everybody knows I do it. And that's why he's so busy in it, because most people don't say, they go through and they go, oh, this guy works with sexual things. Kaz works with sexual things. But a lot of us haven't posted it, you know, and people, it's really important. Yeah.
No,
And
absolutely.
he's also teaching, right? And I don't know when it is, but we'll give him the plug anyway.
Who, Steve?
He's doing his Let's Talk About Sex, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
A 2-day pre-con as well.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
And I find that absolutely. This year, there's James Hazelrig and myself doing one on erectile dysfunction. There's Steen doing Let's Talk About Sex. I think Gila Zach is doing one about, I can't remember, but I know it's got a sexual related thing. There's my 2-hour lecture on working with libido. There's Greg's stuff. So, you know, it's the whole therapeutic aspect.
Yeah, right. I want to note that was not erotic. This is not erotic hypnosis. We want to differentiate.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is that after you go through all the therapeutic, you go back to the eroticism, back in your room.
Absolutely.
Because you're releasing and freeing yourself up to be able to have a good time.
Absolutely.
People sometimes put erotic before therapeutic.
Yes.
But it needs to be therapeutic before erotic. They think that erotic, that's more of like, let's orgasm, let's this, let's that, you know, almost like a porn. And I'm not downplaying it. It's just saying, let's do the work to then enjoy that part of it. Right?
Well, absolutely. Well, the thing is, I always say to people, you know, there's no point teaching your client how to have a hypnotic orgasm when we can teach them how to have a real one, as in giving them the confidence, connecting them in with their body. You know, it feels great, you know, the whole, you know, erotic hypno orgasms. But actually, what we want is the real life stuff that we can manifest for ourselves, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, totally.
Getting back to that grounding, so to speak, and being present and all of that
Absolutely.
that we do.
Well, this is such a huge subject. As usual, we have still tons of stuff to talk about. So maybe in the sometime future here, we'll do this again. I can't exactly know exactly when, but I'm sure it's a well-needed thing. We'll just go to the next thing. We'll call it part 3. Clever, isn't it? Part 3.
Oh, done deal. Done deal.
So I just want to talk about, these guys are both going to be there. Steen Niels Musha, the sexual freedom, all of this. It's a big subject. And Kaz says, well, gee, there seems to be a lot of it this year. And I think it's because suddenly, because Steen's been presenting on it, you've been presenting on it, Greg's been presenting on it, and now suddenly there's more and more people interested. And that's great.
Or, you know, we all have to, someone has to move forward, or several people or a group of people move forward and say, look, this is needed, and have that courage to do that, no matter what anybody else says, to be themselves and talk about what they need to be, right? And what's going on, to then, okay, it's not just me.
It's very true, actually. The feedback I got from last year mainly was, thank you for having the courage to come over here and talk about this stuff, to talk about the kink-friendly therapy, and that, you know, that somebody, you know, as a group of people, we've started doing that now, haven't we, you know? So
okay. So I just want to thank you guys for being here, Kaz and Greg, and we'll see you again in the near future somewhere. And I just want to talk about next week. We have Tom Nicolion, and that's going to be a great show too. So Tom is into all kinds of stuff, and he's been doing so many things. There's too much to list, but you can go to the show page and see what the show is about. I just want to remind everybody about my webinar, my free webinar on August 26th, right? 27th, see? Anyway, it'll be free and it'll be great. So please come back next week and listen to Hypnosis Everywhere. And I want to thank everyone again and just say goodbye.
Thank you.
And see you next week.
All right, you're clear. Great job.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.
You guys have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you next time.
Yeah,
okay,
thanks so much.
thanks. Bye. I think great show. Great show.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Great.
you so much, you guys.
you're very welcome. I hope that I certainly had several emails after the last one. A lot of that actually was I'm really interested in this, but again, thank you for talking about this stuff, which and I think maybe there's a bit of fear there with therapists.
Yeah.
You know, if they do advertise, what people will think, or what people will,
Yeah.
insinuate from that. But actually, you know, we don't think about that when we talk about the psychosexual clinic at the hospital. Nobody would think that there's anything wrong with that. So
it's totally interesting that therapists, you know, the only thing that I can say about that is that I always think it's best to be you. And if
Right.
it isn't, well, that's okay.
absolutely,
But, you know, be you. And if you are interested, and if you are, just stand up front. I mean, I think I've told you the story before about when I first started people, because I'm quite metaphysical. So, you know, and people say, oh, but you must keep it professional and stay on, you know, and I said, well, I'd rather just be who I am, and I'll draw the clients that I need to draw. You know, I mean, that's how it works. And I worked from anywhere from clinical to very metaphysical. And there doesn't have to be a differentiation. It's all hypnosis. It's just the crazy things we make these little boxes that we're supposed to fit in.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Kaz, did you ever apply to the NGH with any of this stuff or no?
No, I probably should do.
Because here's what I'm thinking. I'm in with information. They may be willing to, and then when you come across, you could be here for 2 or 3 weeks and set up something else somewhere else or whatever. I'm just thinking, because I think
that would be the idea, really. That's something that I was looking at doing sort of next year, is to, rather than flying in and flying out and flying in and flying out, is to come over and stop for a while and do a few different things in a few different places.
Yeah,